Afternoon. My presentation will be a bit weird compared to other presentation here because I'm a complete stranger in area of linguistic research or logic or cognitive science. My background is in geography and in political science, and I will start with broader story. We get some subsidy for research on radicalization of politics in the Czech Republic, and we intended to analyze it based on some social data from surveys on what people think about some important political features. However, we found out that this is not good direction because if there are some shifts, they are not significant. So we had to look for another sources where to or how to analyze radicalization in the politics, and we get this thing that there are some possibilities how to capture the evolution of what is in the politics with the text or the speeches or from simply from the way how it's speak or talked about politics. So this is the background of this analysis. Here I will talk about positions of the Czech far right party and the SPD, which is the abbreviation of freedom and direct democracy, which is quite cool name for far right party. And what I'm interested for is the evolution of the position of the party in some dimensions which can be seen as populist or really far right. So in this presentation I deal with the dimension of immigration and more precisely the dimension of anti-immigration in the Czech discourse. And finally, in one part of the presentation, I will compare the positions of this party with the positions of other parties in Czech Parliament. How I get these positions? I will use the automatic text analysis, more precisely tool which is called Wordfish. I will introduce this method in more detail later. So firstly, a bit of context. The SPD is a party which is in parliament. It got about 10% of votes in last parliamentary elections, and technically it's the successor of previous party, Dawn of Direct Democracy, which was which was the parliamentary party in last term, and it was established after this party disintegrated after some issues with party finance. Actually, it's not the type of party which is like with members and with several popular persons. It's mostly one man party. It represents by Tomio Okamura on the picture. You can be a most xenophobic politician even if you have Japan father. So it's quite a very strange situation, but it's what happened. And the party has really strong populist appeal. So it means that it speaks strongly against the current political elite. It tried to produce that the feeling that the only people are possible to govern the country well, and a lot of let's say notions which are against, let's say, the traditional way how the politics is carried out. And the second important feature of the presentation is the so-called migration crisis. It's related to recent development in number of migrants into Europe. there are usually about 200 immigrants into the countries of European Union each year, and in 2014 it was about 1 million, so it was quite an increase in the total number. So there was some shifts in in policies regarding the immigration, and this shift actually affects also the Czech Republic in 2015. Actually, from these immigrants to the EU from countries, let's say outside Europe, not many people are going into the Czech Republic. It's usually about dozens of persons each year, so it's nothing. But in 2015, there was something like mechanism on the level of the European Union that immigrants coming coming to the EU will be relocated into the member states of the EU. This tool never entered into operation in full extent, and into the Czech Republic around I think 14 people came based to these measures, but still the immigration became a really important issue in the Czech politics, and I will show you how the position of the, let's say, the most salient opponent to migration in the Czech Republic was developing from the start of the migration crisis. So firstly, just briefly on party positions. It's something which allows us to simplify the way how we talk about politics. It's something that allows us to differentiate between parties and differentiate between policy orientation of parties in time. It's really abstract concept, so it's not possible to observe it directly. Like you see some chairman, and you can say it's far right. It's not possible. It has to be abstracted from different sources. As the sources usually used are expert surveys. It works like you asked to several other people in political science what they think about the position of some parties in some policies, and they provide you some numbers, and you have finally you are summing up them, and you have something like party position. Another way is coding of manifesto. You take the document with all policy preferences which parties express prior to the elections, and to code all sentences, and you get some when you are summing up your codes, you can get something like party positions. Both these ways has some methods, some problems. The problem with manifesto is obviously that it's available only when elections occurs. So it's not very useful when you have election every 4 years. And you have some really emerging issue like this issue of migration, and you have no manifestos about it. So it's not very useful to capture some emerging issue or some issues which are developing really fast. And the problem with expert survey is that it's something like there is something like a strong interdependency of each measure. If you ask expert about position of party in 2016 and then again in 2017, he think approximately the same thing, although that they can be some changes. So these two methods are quite good. They are quite well established in political science, but they are quite problematic.
Je tady taxi. Pan děkan poprosil, aby tady o 3:30 byl taxi pro 2 lidi. Jsou tady ty 2 lidé do taxíku?
Excuse me, there's a taxi in front of the building, and the question is there somebody who ordered a taxi? No. Okay. I'm sorry about that. Please.
Okay, so just back to the presentation. I told you that there are some methods for estimation of party positions, and I told you that there are not very useful for my purpose. So what I will use is this method called wordfish. This method which is based on texts. You need some text produced by the party, and what the method does is that based on distribution of words used in the text, it measures how these texts are similar or not. So basically, it's something like scaling technique, which put on the texts on a scale, and you can see on which point of the scale the text is. The result is just one single dimension. So the text has to speak about the similar thing. If you are using the text, the mass of text, which contains some statements on, let's say, environmental policy and on migration and on transport, then it will not produce very nice results, because just find that there are some different issues in the texts. The method is not as well established as previously introduced methods which are expert surveys and manifesto coding, but there are some studies using it, and these studies provide some nice results, and shows that the method provides valid measures and reliable measures, even if you are using different languages and even if you are dealing with texts from different times. So I'm able to get some time series estimates of party positions. The basic assumption of the method is that the words the probability that the word occurs in text is independent on probability of another word that occur in the text. So this is quite let's say very simple assumption, and it's probably not obviously it's not very let's say supported by reality. There are some words which are going more frequently with other words than some other words. So let's say European are going quite often together with word union, but this let's say relation between words are not taken into account by this method. The second thing is that the text is just represented by the word counts. You have some words in the text, and each word occurs in the text several times. So in this example, I have a lot of times the word it, and a lot of times the word Europe. And what the method really needs is this. It's just the distribution of the words. The distribution is the the Poisson distribution, there are only few words which are really frequent in the text. So like words like to be or it or to have, just the this really very frequent words. And then there are a lot of words which occur just only once or two times in the text. And this distribution has two parameters, the mean and the variance. And the assumption of Poisson distribution is that a mean and variance are the same quantities. They are equal to each other. So for the statistical estimation of the model, there is just one unknown parameter, which is both mean and which is both mean and variation. So it's possible to estimate it based on if you have more text, you have more these distributions. So based on differences between these distributions, you can go with some scale as the result. And what the scale, what information the scale provides you, if party maintain a position, the value on the scale will be similar because they are using the same words. Yeah, there is problem that similar position can be very probably expressed in different words, but this is something which again the method doesn't count. And if party moves, then it probably then it's connected with change in the vocabulary of the party, and if it became closer to another party, it became the vocabulary became similar to another party. So let's move to empirical analysis. The data which I'm using are Facebook statements written by the party chairman Tomio Okamura. I web scrape all posts from last 3 years, so it's about more than 2,000 posts, so approximately 2 posts per day. And if you are on Facebook and you have some friends, they usually wrote something like I was on lunch and there is a picture of lunch, but that's not how Tomio Okamura are using Facebook. This is just the standard example of his post. Usually there is some statement. It's the green box just on the top of the page, and then there are some, let's say, mandatory items. The first one is always, what do you think about it? Tell me in comments. And then there are some, let's say, technical things like please share, go out and talk with people who are not on my Facebook page, give me some money to run campaign, print leaflets and put it everywhere, and a lot of other words which are probably not producing any information about party position. So what I did with all the text, I just take these statements, which actually is just the minority of most of his posts. But there is maybe a bit problem because he often used some positional sentences also in these things like go to elections because only in elections you can do something. So there is a big problem with this election, but and it's quite hard to go through all these items 2,000 times. So I didn't do that. So then I select from all these posts just these which used words migration and refugee. So it simplified my sample from 2,000 to about 800. So you can see that it's quite important issue for the party. And then I grouped the selected text into the groups on monthly base, because you have to have some amount of the text for estimation of the the position. If you have just about 100 words, it doesn't work well. So because the distribution is can be affected by some outliers, and it really doesn't work well. So I have about 39 months covered by the data, and from this monthly data, I make lemmas to let's say if they are using some word in past tense, and then in present tense, I just put into one form. So it's just the words, not the let's say version of the words. So, and this is the result. Because it's scaling technique, the scale is always like something abstract. I can say what it is just from the look on the picture. I have to go to words to see what words are fitting or are associated with this position, and words which are associated with different position. But for the beginning, we can see that there is quite important shift in party position. It's really very different around start of 2015, and it's very different now. And these words are quite important clue what is going on. In early stage, when party starting to work on this issue, the party speaks mostly about migration itself, about the words quite let's say some of them are really weird, but it has its own story. So the vision of the migration by the SPD is something like a disaster, that there are coming really a lot of people from really very different culture, and they want to turn the Europe into caliphate, and really very let's say hateful speech about immigrants and refugees. If you are going through the individual post, it's really very disgusting. It's really something really very extreme. It's full of rapes, full of murders, full of terrorist attacks, and these words are still, let's say, they are ugly, but they are not so ugly as some other words on this side of scale. And later on, the change is that the migration started to be used only as a tool how to distinguish between the SPD and other parties. So they start talking that this is the problem which other politicians bring into the Czech Republic, and Soros. It's really according to the view of the SPD. Soros is really responsible for migration into the EU, and they also use this like there is another party, and this party is supporting migration, and the chairman is also are going to legalize heroin and hard drugs. So it was like the tool how to connect or how to let's say show that the other parties are bad for sympathizers of the SPD. So this let's say view or this development of position of the SPD on issue of migration doesn't mean that the party goes from anti-migration to pro-immigration, but it means that it changed the way that this is the speaking about migration itself, and this is using migration as something to blame other politicians. Because if we use data from or texts from manifestos provides for last parliamentary election, it took part just the last month. We can see that the party is still really far away from other parties on this issue. And this is the words which are distinguished between this position and this position, that here parties, or just the one party, which are really strongly anti-immigration, are talking about immigration, about territoriality, about numbers, like about really huge numbers of migrants and money, which are, and about some consequences for finance and culture. Whereas parties which are not so anti-immigrant are talking rather about rethinking, about some commitments, and that it's necessary to handle the problem and really like let's say in a constructive way regarding the issue. Then I also tried to do the same thing with the position towards the EU itself, but it seems it doesn't work well. But it's just because here some about 15 minutes video rewritten into the text of status appeared, which is very probably not written by Tomio Okamura, but someone else, because it's in a different style. And then the Tomio Okamura just let's say remember that there is some video, and he started to post it every 2 months. So this is just the months in which the same video appeared. So it's not the change in position, but it's the change it's just the repetition of some previous statement, which is, but it's really challenging the method, because you see that it's impossible that party changed the position so significantly just in a very short time. But it's just the let's say something like attribute of the text itself. So here is quite a problem. So just to conclude, despite the last chart I present you, Wordfish seems to be able to capture a substantive change in text, and it also allows, or I was able to find some substantive change in position of SPD towards migration, because as I showed you, there is quite important difference, that they are firstly spoke about migration itself, and then they started to use it as something which makes them different from other parties. So thank you, and what do you think about it? And if you think something, just tell me. So thank you.
Thank you. you very much. And so now it's time for your comments, questions. Are there any? I would like to ask you about something. I'm not sure if I'm catching it right, but when you downloaded these information, this text from the Facebook,
It's just from last week. Because I have something like script, so I just run one keyword on the computer and it's done. So it's from last week.
But cannot be there some changes or some deleting?
That's true, because the party, another big issue of the party is censorship. They are constantly claiming that they are censored because they are talking true. Actually, it's not true that they are talking true, but it's true that Facebook just cancelled some of their posts because they clearly violated some of the rules, because they, especially on the start of the 2015, they were very, very extreme. So it was some of the posts even now contains the notion that there are people in south part of the USA who are time to time just kill some refugee, and this is really very, very not human statement. So it's it's true that the position is maybe a bit correct by the let's say some actions of another actors on the web page. So yeah, that's true. It can be a bit affected of these things.
Thank you. I enjoyed this a lot. Well, I didn't really, because it reminds me of Mr. Kotleba in my country. But I understand what you're talking about, and I thought, you did quite a job there. It must have been like a lot of work to analyze all this data. I would like a bit of clarification on one point that I didn't quite get. So your analysis was based on the distributions of just the word immigration and immigrants?
No, just distribution of words in paragraphs which are using the word, which contains the words immigrant or
immigration. So. Right, okay, yeah, that's all I wanted to know. Thank you.
Hello, thank you for presentation. I would like to ask, your analysis was based on text content. I am asking because I saw some interview with Josef Schlerka, data analyst, and Daniel Prokop, sociologist, and they said that the most content of SPD Facebook pages are videos, and videos content has most likes and sharing. And because they said, one hypothesis, that it's because it is easier to, let's say, share it and get the information from it. And because the voters or people who looks at the Facebook of this party has, let's say, lower education, it's easy for them. So I have two questions. If you analyze also the videos, and if the videos are, let's say, more radical, and what's your opinion to the thesis that it's easier to share radical thesis via videos in compared to text content?
Actually, I think that is a big problem, because they usually turn everything into the text. So if there is a video, it's usually video and text, especially if it's video provided by Okamura himself. If it's video from, let's say, Czech TV or from another television, it's usually just the video, but usually it's a video and the text included in the video is rewritten into the post. So it's I think it's just part of the story that they are more radical in videos, and I'm not very sure that they are really are more radical in videos because really if you have something written on the web page, it's probably the, how to say, you can easily manage that it's something what you did not intend to write, or that it doesn't mean who something thinks, or you are not the author. But if you say something in the video, you can have a problem with if you are saying really very extreme things or very radical things. It's on the edge of law. I think it's not very useful to say it on the video, but yeah, it's hard to say. Maybe it is, maybe, but I will try it, because all the posts are tagged with the notion whether that it's a video or photos or things like that. So it's possible to find out what the truth is. But yeah, it's a really good idea, and thank you for it.
So, some other comments or questions? If there are none, then we will have a break, and during the break, thank you again for the talk.